Talks, coming to you from Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia, on a beautiful morning, just slightly after 8 a.m. when the cemetery opens. Just give that a listen. This is Bonaventure waking up in the morning. The monuments still have dew gathered on them. The morning light is just beginning to play across the place, illuminating the great graves and the live oaks. The Spanish moss is just starting to expand in the trees, and they were very busy blowing in the wind last night, so they had a long sleep. Kind of the hair of the cemetery, often described as the cobwebs of time. So yeah, that Spanish moss never hurts the image of an old cemetery, does it? Well, hey, this is my first live video on my YouTube channel for Grave Talks. Many moons ago, I tried to do one, and they told me I didn't have enough subscribers, so perhaps you all have helped to make my channel a little more valid, so we thank you for that. So we're taking a stroll here together, and I thought along the way, I have a grave destination in mind this morning because yesterday, June 25th, was the anniversary of a famous person's death, and we'll cover that in a little bit. But notice these two pillars. They're kind of partially pillars of strength and broken obelisk, and these are two veiled urns. And I've always commented to people that from like the side or the back, it very much looks like, I don't want to say, the Grim Reaper. That's a little too morbid, but you can let your imagination play. They are a little Grim Reaper-like. But I've always felt they look like a mourning woman, at the grave, with maybe a long shawl or a veil. If you want to get kind of religious about it, maybe almost like a Mother Mary idea, kind of that at least traditional artist rendering or garb of, women in the Bible. I'm sure there's a name for that type of garb, and I apologize, I don't know it. But as we come around to the side of it, and it's really a perfect time to talk about it, we see the Half Veiled Urn. So this is a sunrise, sunset notion, a death and resurrection idea, the Half Veiled Urn. And these were the most popularly ordered out of cemetery catalogs in the old days. And as many of you probably already know, that these were the original burial vessel. This one looks more like a classical oil carrying vessel or a water carrying vessel, which is, in the kind of the more modern Christian updated notion, represents, the anointing of the body in a funerary process, anointing of the feet of Christ, the cleansing of Christ. But in general, the urn represents the dissemination of the soul from the body, and it's somewhat of an offering to the above, being kind of offered up towards heaven. But yeah, in general, death and resurrection, a peek behind the veil, sunrise, sunset, and the veil of life was always about that border that exists between life and death, and that to really know the other side, paradise beyond, you had to do the earthly work first. So we're all down here doing that. So let's talk about who we're here to visit a little bit. No doubt many of the viewers out there will recognize the name of these songs: Lazy Bones, That Old Black Magic, Moon River, Jeepers Creepers, Hooray for Hollywood, You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby, G.I. Jive, Tutti Frutti, The Atchins to Topeka and Santa Fe, Skylark, Laura, Autumn Leaves, One for My Baby, Something's Gotta Give, In the Cool, Cool, Cool of the Evening, Zippity Doo-Dah. Am I missing any? Well, we're out here really to take a cruise by the grave of the illustrious Johnny Mercer, the songwriter born in Savannah. Yesterday in history, June 25th, he passed on to the great heavenly chorus, where we hope he is continuing to make music and entertain the heavens. But he passed away of brain cancer and its effects in a hospital bed, I believe, in his music studio, where his wife, Ginger, she'd been taking care of him the last 3 weeks of his life. And he'd been diagnosed with brain cancer, sometime before that. I mean, I think he knew he had a tumor, was feeling the effects of it for some years, and then not sure exactly when he was diagnosed, but 6 neurosurgeons looked at it, and they really told him that there was no hope. And then they finally let one operate on him in Pasadena, and he passed away into the great beyond. And so the world lost one of the personality artist gems of the world. He was such a tour de force in art life and music, and just an incredible, incredible talent. And to give you some kind of American context, he was a direct descendant of General Hugh Mercer. And if you all have ever seen, and I got to see this as a child, the painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware. Yeah, it's hard to not know that painting, really, if you're born in America, although I sometimes wonder anymore. But in that painting, you find the legendary General Hugh Mercer, and he died at the Battle of Princeton, where today in Mercer County, New Jersey, there was a statue of General Hugh Mercer on the campus grounds. And anyway, a lot of these Mercers that you find buried in cemeteries in Savannah, and I suppose in many cases living around the area, but particularly notable to Bonaventure and other cemeteries, these are the direct descendants of Johnny Mercer. And so we're here at the plot. We see the name Mercer and In Perpetual Care. And around the edge here we have what we call the song bench. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Co-founder of Capitol Records, 1941. Winner of 4 Academy Awards, the first songwriter to ever capture 4 Oscars. And then we see the autograph of Johnny Mercer. Isn't that wonderful? But a line, "Buddy, I'm a kind of poet, and I've got a lot of things to say." It's a great line, and it also kind of shows that he was kind of the everyman songwriter in a sense. He was everybody's friend and was indeed a poet. I think, over 1,500 songs. I'm not sure the exact number, like 1,567 or something like that. So that's a lot of songs. But Days of Wine and Roses was I think it was his 3rd Oscar or 4th Oscar. And then Moon River is somewhere in there as well. But yeah, these are kind of the songs our parents and grandparents grew up with, although I grew up singing out of the Johnny Mercer 101 songbook. So I remember a lot of things. So let's talk about some of the characters. Firstly, let's go to Johnny's grave, since we're really here to honor him. You can see he was born November 18th, 1909, June 25th, 1976, yesterday in history. And what a great song title on his grave, right? And the Angels Sing. Neighboring, we have his wife, who is a tour de force in many ways, and also incredibly principled and old world lady, difficult, but just complex, many layers. She was an angel and maybe a little tougher than that at times, but maybe it takes a tough person to be an angel. But we see she was called Ginger, and she was a Broadway showgirl when they first met. She was dating Bing Crosby, or so I've read and it's been said. But you see, she's got that great song title, "You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby." Um, Johnny's father's first wife is buried here, Mary Walter, who gave Johnny his half brother, I believe, who I think is named Walter. But and he's buried in some other cemetery in the world. I'm not sure exactly when, but she died at 29 in 1900. And really, George, Johnny's dad, here with the Celtic cross, it's so beautiful with all of its kind of braiding and patterns. George Anderson Mercer, so another famous Savannah name in a way, Anderson. But he was born March 2nd, 1868, died November 14th, 1940. And he created a bit of a family scandal when he married Lillian. Uh, she was a Jewish girl from, I think, Prussia. But her family had no money, and George came from money. And so they had to keep their marriage secret for about 2 years. And, that probably was not an easy thing to do in such a small family in Savannah, Georgia, right? Especially one that was so tight-knit and kind of known. So how do you do that? But I guess they did it. So I suppose couples still do it. But you can almost say Johnny's birth was the cat out of the bag acceptance moment. And she was born 1881. She died 1977. Interesting, she died the same month she was born. She was born September 22nd, 1881. Died September 9th, 1977. But her grave reads, "My mama done told me." And yeah, that comes from Johnny's great hit Blues in the Night of 1941. Also a movie titled the same. Mickey Rooney called that the greatest song he ever heard. One of Judy Garland's favorite Johnny Mercer tunes was Blues in the Night by Johnny Mercer. And of course, many of you have heard that, even if you don't remember it or you don't know you've heard it. Amy Winehouse had a great version. And the way it's sung is like if a guy is singing it, he bemoans the woman. If a woman sings it, she kind of bemoans, spurns the man. But yeah, Blues in the Night. But My Mama Done Told Me, I think, is a part of the streetwiseness that she gave her son, always reminding him he came from humble beginnings in some respect, or at least she did, even though he was born maybe he's privileged in a sense, although the family had lots of ups and downs like any family. The other thing, too, it was not easy having your mama as your coach. So it was always like a tempestuous, loving relationship, but loving all the same. And such a great angel at her grave. And what a setting, too, right? Beautiful. Johnny's kind of soulmate sister was his younger sister, Nancy. And she was born July 11th. She died May 11th, 1914. And Nancy, when it was realized that Johnny had singing talent, she was destined to basically be his sort of vaudeville mate, if you will. They were always photographed together. They were kind of inseparable for the short years that she existed. And he was very, very taken with her death. So much so that he became what we might just call an inward depressed child, which was very unusual for his character. And I think at one point, they were so concerned that they sent him as a young kid, to see Sigmund Freud in Paris. And I guess Freud found a way to help him turn around a little bit or analyze his feelings or whatever it was. But imagine that you had so much money or maybe connections in life that you could send your own young child to Sigmund Freud. But Johnny's other sister, Juliana, she was born in 1915. She died in 2000. And her daughter, and she's got a great lyric too. dream when the day is through. And ultimately, her daughter is Nancy Mercer Keith Gerard. And Nancy was a very close friend to her uncle, Johnny Mercer, and her husband, Steve, who is one of the founders and board members of the Friends of Johnny Mercer, which, of course, I'm a member. And I recommend that to anybody. It's a great group. But she died unexpectedly in 2013, but she was very close to her uncle, Johnny Mercer, up there. And in fact, I think it's been said she was with him in New York when he got the news of Judy Garland's death, who was in many ways a muse for him and inspired songs like That Old Black Magic and other things. So she kind of consoled Johnny a bit when Judy died. But all that said, she loved the history of her uncle and the family and was a great storyteller. And if you all are ever in Savannah and you see the statue of Johnny Mercer in City Market, Steve and her son pose for that statue. I guess he resembles Johnny in respects, but can't sing, but looks like his great uncle or what have you when he was a youngster. So anyway, she was a very neat lady, and I'll have some interviews with her down the road, old interviews that I'll put up online. But so yeah, we just wanted to stop by this morning, just remember Johnny Mercer the Great and his life and times in the world. But just a final story. Johnny and Ginger here, back at the outbreak of World War II in 1941, they knew that all of these singers had recorded for movies in Hollywood, but had not recorded for themselves. And they knew that there was a big money opportunity there. And how could they cash in on that? Well, the story that I have, and again, I don't know everything, was that they found a criminal source for shellac, or an underworld source for shellac in New York. And now shellac was being rationed and all that. And they borrowed, I think, $3,000 from Johnny's uncle. And Ginger over here, who was a genius with money, I think she was a savant with money, she had some set aside. So together, day one of their Capitol Records, they signed Nat King Cole, 1941. And the rest is history, right? Absolutely. Wow. Can you imagine the history of music itself, particularly contemporary, without the name Capitol Records? Yeah, I bet you can't. I sure can't. So yeah, that's pretty powerful. And one other neat thing, we'll come back to the autograph here. Johnny Mercer could draw and paint. And anytime his fans asked him for an autograph, as much as possible, he would not only scribble you his name, he would draw you a picture of himself, either this drawing or a 5-line drawing. And I think it's amazing that he took the time to do that for his fans. But, even if he was in the middle of eating a sandwich, he wanted you to know that you had given him the right to eat that sandwich. You were like his extended family. So from his heart, he did something like that for you, and that just must have tickled people to death. And I've been blessed to meet some of those people who met him as youngsters and later, and they all have very down-to-earth kind of guy, stories about Johnny Mercer. He always remained that low country kid from Savannah, Georgia, Johnny Mercer. And sir, God rest your soul. And thank you, everybody, for watching my first live video here on Grave Talks with Shannon Scott. And we will talk to you real soon. We'll story you soon. How about that?